Yes.
And we're going to add another 3 billion people in the next 50 years.
Yes. Yes.
They're all going to want energy.
Yes.
So the fundamental premise that we're all going to reduce our energy consumption
yes.
to affect the energy transition, that is a fool's errand.
Yes. Sir, we have talked about energy transition already, and we have talked about carbon management. We have talked about this. If you were to define what is energy transition, somebody who has heard the term but doesn't understand it, and then how would you rank or prioritize the different components within energy transition, right? Which would you bet your money on in terms of having the biggest impact and the fastest impact that the goal of energy transition is? So what is energy transition? What are the components? And how would you, which are your favorite components, if you will?
Okay, well, I'll start with a very fundamental premise that I believe should dominate all of our thinking. And so when people initially think of energy transition, it means I'm going away from something, or I'm going to eliminate this, or I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make a change. I'm going to make a bet. I'm going to pick a winner, all of these things. To me, it's very simple. We have a lot more people in the world than we've ever had.
Yes.
And we're going to add another 3 billion people in the next 50 years.
Yes. Yes.
They're all going to want energy.
Yes.
So the fundamental premise that we're all going to reduce our energy consumption to affect the energy transition, that is a fool's errand.
Yes.
That is not going to happen.
Yes.
There will be a tremendous demand for additional energy. And at the same time, there'll be a tremendous demand for much fewer emissions.
Yes.
And if you start with that premise, and the lens that you look for, it's about emissions reductions.
Yes.
It's not about fuels. It's not about technologies. It's not about anything specifically like that.
Yes.
But it's looking at the emissions and how is the most rapid and effective way, and that means from a cost and reliability standpoint, how do I get fewer emissions over time and ultimately transition to that decarbonized world that we'd like to achieve?
Yes.
Now, I happen to believe there is no single silver bullet.
Okay.
There are a number of technologies that are being looked at today, and many of them have impact. But let's remember something. Close to 85% of the world's energy comes from fossil fuels.
Yes.
And if we understand that and really embrace the fact that wind and solar and renewable technologies will all be a big part of the future that we move towards, and will be a big part of the energy transition, it is physically and commercially naive to believe that we're actually going to eliminate fossil fuels as the solution to the energy transition. It cannot happen. And that is fundamentally because consumer demand will not allow it to happen.
Yes.
Now, that being said, the fossil industry and the hydrocarbon industry has a big challenge to decarbonize.
Yes.
And so there's a series of technologies: carbon capture, utilization, and storage. The taking of hydrogen and expanding it as a fuel choice and decarbonizing it by having blue hydrogen or ultimately green hydrogen, and being able to have that fuel substitution be a big part of the power industry, the petrochemicals industry, the oil and gas industry. It's important to decarbonize the electricity grid, but you're not going to do it with windmills, solar panels, and batteries. That is also a fool's errand.
Huh.
The idea that we're going to be able to just simply eliminate coal and gas-fired generation is not possible. And oh,
Yes.
by the way, the elimination of nuclear certainly does not help the carbon footprint. We need to find ways to expand and develop the nuclear industry, not suppress it.
Yes.
And I say this as often as I can.
Yes.
As we grow, we cannot subtract our options.
Yes.
We have to have a full portfolio of options that are lower carbon intensity than they've ever been before. And that's the challenge that's in front of us. And so picking a winner or a loser, that's not the answer. And
Okay.
depending on where you are in the world and what choices you have, that will drive it. That's why it's so important the technologies that we have in this country that we're developing
Yes.
aren't just for the United States.
Yes.
They're for the rest of the world.
Yes.
And if we embrace the fact that that's a big part of what the rest of the world wants from us,
Yes.
that's the key. They don't want politicians in the United States telling them how to behave.
Yes.
They want people in the United States to develop technologies that they can use and make their lives better.
Yes.
So let's get on with it, right?